Denise Howard to introduce her. August will come up.
One of the joys of my life in working as a shaman is I get to travel to other worlds. And one day last week, I got to go to the upper world, which is called, in street language around here, heaven. And it has 5 levels. The first level is the stone people, and Denise is going to enlighten us about the stones. The second level is the plant people, eat your vegetables. And the third level, is animals. That's where the animals reside. The fourth level is humans plus whales and dolphins. And the fifth level is the angelic realm. So I have the privilege of introducing Denise Howard. Denise does a couple things in the community. She works in the human services field in one of the agencies in Abington, and I think that is primarily with youth type of thing. But that's not what she's here to talk to us about. I've known her for the past couple years, and as a part of her own healing journey, she has worked with stones, and that's the context in which I got to know and work with her. So she's going to tell us how those stones inform who she is, what she does, and she's coming into her own as a healer. So here's Denise.
I was afraid of this. I'm a short people. Thank you so much for letting me share my story today. I have become to believe that I have finally found my purpose in life, which I have been wondering for the last couple of decades. What am I here for? Everybody's supposed to have a purpose, something that they were born to do. And I think that my purpose has to do with sharing the message of the stones with as many people as I possibly can. I originally developed this talk at the urging of a friend I met back in the spring when I got my Reiki 2 attunements. And I was coming to the crystal meditations and bringing my trays of stones to have them charged during the meditation. And he said, you really should talk about this. And I was like, me? I'm not an expert. And he's like, you're an expert on you and what they've done for you. And he said, you know more about stones than anybody I know. And so with him, I developed this talk, and I gave it in August, but I'm not very well known, so it wasn't, and I was competing with a couple other events that day, so it didn't go as well as I had hoped, but it did give me some practice. I did go ahead and give it, but instead of doing about 20 stones, due to time limitation, I'm going to choose the 7 that have been the most, I guess, dramatic, the most special, and the far-reaching consequences that they've had. Before I start talking about the stones, in order for you to know how much they've helped me, you kind of need to know a little bit about like where I've come from, where I was before I was introduced to the stones last year. In 2012, I moved out of my 2,000 square plus foot dream home that I had lived on. I didn't live in that home, but I had lived on that property for nearly 30 years, on property that I inherited from my grandparents. And I had been married nearly 20 years to my second husband, and I'd been at the same job for nearly 10 years. Just a normal life, but I wasn't happy in it. But unbeknownst to me, that fall of 2011, my husband, who suffered from numerous disabilities, his doctor upped his medication. He was on oxycodone and almost doubled it. And I noticed some dramatic personality changes. But what sparked all of this change was I came home twice to a freaked out man with a loaded gun on my face. And after a death threat that I received, I moved out into a studio apartment near campus where I was working at a university. I never lived alone before in my whole life. Between husbands and children, I'd never been on my own. And so it was a very traumatic experience. And during that time, I was taking the hardest course I'd ever taken in preparation for my ADS degree, and getting licensure in counseling was practicum, where it's kind of rubber meets the road kind of thing. And so it was a very stressful time. And I began to have panic attacks. And although I thought the way he had been, he would be glad to see me go, he was desperate to keep me. So he promised to change. I said, well, I'm not moving back in, but I'll be there for you. And he told me he had liver cancer, which was, of course, very stressful. I was thinking he was dying, so why divorce a dying man? And I had compassion for him. But the stress put me in the hospital over Labor Day weekend. I went to a clinic to assess I thought I was having heart attack symptoms. And I had a very strange, almost near-death experience in the clinic, and they rushed me to the hospital in the ER in an ambulance, sticking nitro under my tongue, trying to revive me, and I was convinced that night that I was going to die of a heart attack, what my dad did at 46. That didn't happen, but after a week of tests and sickness, I found out from my massage therapist that I was severely deficient in magnesium, and all my systems were shutting down because of stress. So I was cured with Epsom salts water that I began to take on a regular basis. And during that time, I lost my best friend of several years through a very hurtful situation. And also during this whole year, to complete the picture, a position that was coming open that should have been mine by rights of seniority and what the job I was doing, I had a coworker who decided she wanted it worse than I did. So she began to tell lies and spread rumors and try to come between me and my boss, who had always had a good relationship. And I felt like I had to leave. I had to leave Cookeville. And after my husband did have a heart attack at the McDonald's drive-thru and was defibrillated, they ran tests and they said, they came in and said, Mr. Anderson, I don't understand. There's nothing wrong with your liver. So he had lied to me for 6 months that he was dying. And that was the final straw. So I began that fall to try to find another job, hopefully in the career that I was pursuing my education for. And I was fortunate enough to find very quickly a job here in Abington, about 200 and something miles away. So just before Christmas, I literally filed for divorce on the way out of town and started a whole new life up here, the new career, new home, living on my own. And while I was still unpacking, I found a lump. I was the one who had cancer. So that was like the worst day of my life. I just thought I was finally free and starting over, and was convinced I was going to die of this horrible disease. And I had a terrible panic attack in February. It was the week before my surgery, and barely made it home. And I laid in the bed for 24 hours without moving, staring at the wall, wishing I was dead. I didn't think I had the strength to go on. But I did, and I had the surgery, and I decided not to have chemo and radiation since they said that they had gotten it all. And I began to research alternative therapies, such as what August does, acupuncture, Reiki, a variety of different things like that to try to heal myself, change my diet, change my ways. And the week after surgery, I was given this lapis lazuli pendant as a healing gift after my surgery to get well. I didn't know anything about stones at that point. My mother was into them a little bit. She kept the carnelian for her sciatic nerve, but I really didn't know anything about what they were capable of. But I began to wear the necklace because it was my favorite color and it was beautiful and it meant a lot to me. So anyway, I work in home with families with disturbed children. That's my job. I'd been wearing this for a while, still new in my job, still very nervous about what I should say, what I should do. And I was compelled to call DSS on a family because a child went to see him. His whole face was green. He said his uncle had thrown him into a wall. Well, the next time I went back after I called DSS, which was heart-wrenching for me to do, I showed up at the home, and the grandmother literally verbally attacked me at the door. She didn't know I was the one who had called. I was afraid that she did. The house was in turmoil. There were numerous family members there. It was chaos, and I'm like, what am I going to say? And I opened my mouth, and I had one of the most unusual experiences of my life. I said exactly the right thing in exactly the right way, and it was like a little part of me was sitting over here, wow, that's pretty profound. I didn't know you knew that. But it was perfect. It was just what needed to be said. I calmed the family, restored order. Things were much better when I left, and I was like, wow, what just happened? And I began to research the stones, and lapis is a third eye and throat chakra stone. It helps you get in touch with your inner wisdom and express it. So I wear it all the time now, but I no longer worry about what I'm going to say in these awkward, chaotic situations. I know that the words are going to come to me. So that was kind of my most dramatic first experience with them. And after I read that, I was like, well, that must have been what happened. The next stone that I want to talk about is the sodalite, which is also given to me by a friend who had some and thought I might be interested in them and gave me the sodalite. And at some point in that time, I picked up this book, began to read about it, and it's supposed to help you in meditating and your intuition and creativity. So I was laying there on the bed one night going to sleep, and I decided to meditate, and I put it on my third eye and lay there for a while, and I ended up going to sleep. At about 2 o'clock in the morning, 2 or 3 o'clock, I woke up and I had this poem in my head. Now, I've never been interested in poetry. I was forced to read it in college and high school, but it's not my thing. Never, and I've certainly never written one except haiku in 4th grade. But I wrote this poem, and I'm going to go ahead and share it with you. I debated about whether or not I would, but kind of get you in touch where I was over a year ago. But it was perfect. It was like it was running across my brain like neon marquee light. And so I grabbed my journal and I was just writing it down like I was reading it. And I read it. I'm like, wow, that came out of my head, but I didn't write this. But I was very amazed, and it came in handy twice after that. The name of it is In the Dead of Night, is what I titled it. In the dead of night, the sirens come softly. They whisper sweet promises in my sleeping ear. Come with us, they urge, where pain and heartache and longing can no longer reach your tortured soul. Come with us into that sweet, soft, black velvet that surrounds your raw feelings, and you will float forever as if on a cloud. No hurt can ever touch you there. Come with us and find the freedom you seek. In the dead of night, the demons come loudly. They bang on the door of my soul and demand that I follow. You don't deserve life, they shout. You are not worthy of its gifts of peace and love and prosperity. Accept your fate and join us as you always knew you would, for we will never allow you to live free. And I ended up emailing it to my mom. She said, I think you need brain surgery. But there was a purpose to it. But then the next month or so, I was working with 2 different children who had recently been released from hospital for suicide attempts. One was a little 11-year-old boy, and I shared it with him. I debated about it, but after a conversation we had, I shared it with him, and it really touched him. And he opened up, and we bonded after that, and he was able to drastically improve his behavior and earn his rewards, and to the point he no longer needed services. The other one was a 13-year-old girl who had recently been released from hospital for cutting herself. And she was very standoffish and wasn't sure exactly how to approach her. But after a couple of conversations, I just handed this to her. I said, read this and see what you think. And she looked at it, and tears came to her eyes, and she looked up at me and she says, you understand? I said, yes, I do. And there's nothing you can tell me that's going to shock me or make me feel less about you. And she opened up, and after 3 months, I was able to step her down to a lesser service. So there was a purpose for this painful poem. And I want to thank my sodalite for that. The next one, this is the most dramatic one that I've ever encountered. In May, I went back to Cookville for my granddaughter's birthday, and I stopped in Knoxville at the Green Earth Emporium and bought this book, which really changed my life. It's Crystal Energy, 150 Ways to Bring Success, Love, Health, and Harmony into Your Life. And I get a bit of obsessive on interest, and I became obsessed in getting all the stones that were in here and using them in all the ways that they recommended. And one of them was amethyst earrings to increase your intuition. Also helps you get in touch with your spirit guides and your angelic realms. So I went to Misty Mountain and I bought me a little pair of amethyst earrings and started wearing them every day. And no, I'm not schizophrenic, what I'm going to tell you next, but it's the best way I know to explain this. But I'm driving to Bristol to meet with the kids that I had scheduled that afternoon. And I'm coming up on exit 7, and I hear this message very clearly in my head. It said, "Go see Naya." And Naya is a nickname for a child I was working with at the time. She had several diagnoses, very special needs. And I'd been working with her for a while, and her parents were very cooperative, but she treated me pretty much like a piece of furniture, unless I had Twizzlers. The only way I could get her attention. But I was beginning to wonder, what am I going to do with this child? This is very different than anything I've worked with. You can't really have a conversation with her. Anyway, I said, "Go see Naya." That wasn't on the agenda. So I'm arguing with my little voice. It says, "Go see Naya." So I pull off the interstate. I'm like, well, that's what I'm wearing these for. So I go to the school and talk to the day treatment worker, and she said, "Oh, she's having a good day." I was like, "Good." And the voice said, "See her. Do you think it'd be possible I could sit in the classroom for a few minutes?" And she said, "Sure." So she takes me to the room. I walk in, and the child is sitting in timeout for, once again, being aggressive and hitting a child, pushing them down. She's crying, having a tantrum, and the teacher's like, "Wow, showed up." And so she runs to me, says, "My niece!" And she runs and she grabs me around the waist, buries her head in me, and just cries, "Her mean to me." So I gotta back up and I sit in a chair and I hold her and stroke her hair and calm her down and talk to her a few minutes. And she calms down, she finishes her time out, she goes back to class. And the teacher's like, "That's really strange, you showed up when you did." And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess I just felt she needed me." So, but what's more strange is the exact same thing happened the next Thursday. Going down the road, "Go see Naya." So I go to see her. I walk in, she's in timeout, licking the peanut butter spoon, putting it back in the peanut butter, which is against the rules. Crying, having a tantrum. My niece runs, grabs me. I sit down, calm her. It's just like deja vu all over again. And she goes back to class, and the teacher says, "This is just spooky." I was like, "Yeah, I just guess I know she needs me." And I still don't know exactly how to explain that. But after that, she and I bonded. I was able to take her to the park not long after that, and she actually shared her snack with me, which was phenomenal for her. And by the time she went back to school in the fall, she no longer qualified for day treatment. So she's doing much better today. She's no longer violent and biting everybody, and it's been quite a while since she's had a bad tantrum. So that one was a very special one for me, and so I wear my amethyst earrings all the time. The next one is more physical. I read a lot of things about Moldavite and had a hard time finding one, so ordered one from Amazon. And a couple days before it came in, I was getting into the trunk to get the child a Twizzler, and the trunk lid fell on my head, right across there. About knocked me out and hurt extremely bad. And so I was taking massive doses of ibuprofen for the next couple of days, and I went home for lunch, and my Moldavite had arrived. And I'm like, read the card, and I was like, "Oh, okay." So I take it and lay it on my head, and it burns like I poured alcohol in a wound for about 30 seconds, and then no more pain, no more ibuprofen. Pain was gone. And I'm like, that's amazing. So I wear it in a cage on my neck all the time, which is good because this spring it happened again. Bad trunk lid fell on my head again, and this time I just immediately took it off and laid it on my head, and the pain was gone, and I never did have to take any medicine for that. So now I keep it with me all the time. The next one is my chrysocolla ring. I went to the Highlands Festival last August and found this beautiful chrysocolla pendant and decided it was too much, so I couldn't afford it, so I didn't buy it, but it bothered me all week. I was kicking myself for not getting it. The Saturday when I went to the grocery store in the farmer's market, I went back and I found that lady, and the pendant was gone, but she had this ring. And so I talked to her, I told her how it bothered me and how much I really wanted it, and I had researched it, and told her some things about stones, and she gave me a good enough discount that I ended up buying it. So I put it on and start walking back to the farmer's market, and I realized I felt different. I couldn't exactly explain. I just felt different, like I was lighter somehow, which is a wonderful thing for me. But I went to Food City, and by the time I got out of the car, I literally felt like I was walking on air, almost like I wasn't touching the ground. And I just felt this amazing rush in my heart and just loved everybody. I was giggling for no reason. I sent a text to a friend. I said, now I know how to achieve world peace. Give everybody Chrysocola, because nobody could be fighting or war or hate if they had one of these beautiful stones and felt this joy. So I've worn it every day, and I've got a lot of comments on it, but it's one of my favorites. But I've never achieved that level of high again, but I do think it helps me. I have found over the last year or so that I'm incredibly sensitive to stones. I won't go into all the ones that I've had particularly strong reactions to, but I joke that I can't really wear moldavite and drive because it makes me woozy. And malachite makes me ill. I found that out at a gem show. Every time I go around this booth that had a big malachite, I would get sick and I'd have to walk away. The next one, in December, I was working with this most negative person I'd ever been around in my entire life. And I felt like she was really affecting my soul. I mean, everything that I had been trying to achieve, I just felt depleted. So I had a really strange experience one night. I don't even remember the details, but I called August, and he says, you have a negative energy attachment. And I laughed, and I said, yeah, I know her name. And he said, well, I can help you with that. And I was like, well, he said, you need to stay away from this person. And I said, well, unfortunately, she's just been renewed for another 3 months. So that's 3 to 10 hours a week. And I have to deal with her. So I started doing research and found out that black tourmaline can help. So I think I talked to him on Saturday or Sunday. On Monday, I went to Misty Mountain. I said, I need the biggest black tourmaline you have. And she said, well, we don't have any big ones, but they had this bracelet. I was like, even better. So every time I'm around her, I can just put it over my hand and hold it. And it really helped. It really helped. It was like a protective bubble around me. It was like I could feel that she was negative, but it no longer like penetrated and poisoned me. And so it's just like it was bouncing back. And I was glad. I told a friend that I had met about this, and he called me a week or two later and said, I really want to thank you for telling me about the black tourmalines. He said, I bought some, keep them in my pocket, and they are really helping me deal with my negative coworkers. He said, I'm much better able to do my job. And I'm like, well, I'm glad it's not just me, that it helps others. So I'm running short on time, but I do want to share one more. It's the magnetic hematite. My mother wanted me to meet her in Gatlinburg in February, go to Cherokee and Gatlinburg. Well, my foot was beginning to bother me a lot at that time, so I had to go get a shot the week before and buy some special shoes, and I apologize for them squeaking, but they're about the only ones I can wear, my podiatrist orders. And so we went to Cherokee, and I bought a little bag of small black hematites. It's one of those things you can stick in a bag for $5. And so by the time we got done with Cherokee and back to the room to get ready for supper, it was beginning to throb. And I'm like, oh, shoot, I really wanted to walk down the strip tonight. So I took one of my black hematites and went on the porch and some of the sage that I bought in Cherokee, and I cleansed it really well and wrapped it in my foot wrap and put a little arnica gel on my foot. And we went to supper, and I left it in. It was a little awkward to walk for a while. But by the time we were through eating, I took the hematite out, and I was able to walk the strip that evening without pain. So I keep this one, a nice big flat one, in my back pocket when my back flares up or my sciatic nerve hurts. And my mother had some shoulder injury, and I told her, I said, well, take one of those. I gave her a couple. I said, take one of those and Band-Aid it to your sore spot on your back. And she did, and she called and she said, well, that really works. She said, that really pulls the pain. And I said, yeah. I said, that's pretty amazing. One other one I just want to share for just briefly is turquoise for your plants. I have revived my aloe vera and a poinsettia I had been given as a gift that were dead sticks ready to be disposed of. And I'm like, I really want to save these. So I trimmed them back and put a turquoise in each one. And my poinsettia is not only huge and growing, it actually bloomed last fall. And my aloe vera is back filling up the pot. So turquoise for dying plants is really helpful. Anyway, where they've gotten me now, I was able to get out of the divorce in an amicable way, and we text, but we actually can get along now. I had a wonderful first annual review for my job, and I'm doing well in it. Had 2 clear mammograms, and my blood work was excellent, and I've not had a pill for anything since February. And the panic attacks that plagued me so bad that were really impacting my life in a negative way, I had to carry my little fast-dissolved Xanax with me all the time because I never knew when it was going to strike. I've not had a panic attack since Valentine's Day when we had the ice storm. That still gets to me, but so I am healthier than I have been in a very long time. I no longer think this way like I did last year, and this year has actually been very good. And now I'm able to share my message with as many people as I can. I'm the kind of person who, if something is exciting to me, I like to talk about it. And my natural way of living, my pharmacy is the health food store. August is my primary care physician, and I have been able to so far keep the cancer at bay and able to help people and reach these children in ways I never imagined. I never thought that I would be working with children in the way that I do, but they have helped me tremendously. I now have 850 stones, not counting my jewelry, about 300 different kinds. And no, I'm not an expert on all of them, but I am familiar with what they are doing for me and changing my life. And like I said, I've got probably another twice that many at least I could talk about. But I just wanted to share how they can heal you physically, emotionally, spiritually, in all aspects, and make you enhance your life. They can't make you a better person. They might. Oh, the little girl who bonded with me over the amethyst earrings, she came up to me last summer. She was playing with my bracelets, and she says, "My niece, I need a blue rock." I said, "You do, dear?" I said, "Why do you need a blue rock?" "Help me be a good girl." And I said, "Okay." So I gave her a sodalite, and she kept it in her backpack all the time. And I said, she's doing really well now. So I don't know how much to credit me, maturity, or the stone, but she thought it helped, and that makes a big difference. I shared a tiger eye with a little boy last year who was going through 4-H competitions. He won all divisions and went as far as he could go, and he said it was because of his lucky rock that I had given him. So a lot of it is power of belief, but some of these things, I didn't know whether they worked or not until they did. So I don't think it's all placebo effect. They really do affect your vibrational energy and can help you in a lot of ways. But I want to share my appreciation with you for letting me share my message, and I will answer any questions. I bought my books. I don't know all of it on tap, especially when I'm nervous, but I'll share what I can if anybody has any questions about any of the ones that I've mentioned or any others. Yes, sir.
Was that magnetic hematite?
Magnetic hematite.
And what's the difference between magnetic hematite and non-magnetic? Would that make a difference?
I'm not sure the exact difference, but the magnetic hematite was what was recommended to me. My personal opinion is that the magnetism helps pull the pain. Maybe, maybe not. I just know that it works. My mother keeps a carnelian in her pocket, in her robe. She sleeps with it for her sciatic nerve, and she said it helps her tremendously for that kind of pain. So I don't know if that answers your questions or not. I'm not sure exactly why some of them are magnet and they're not. Anything else? Yes, sir. Oh, okay.
No, I was curious, do the stones work the same on everybody. Like if you go to a book and see this stone is, is supposed to have this effect, is that predictable? Do people react the same to the stones, or does it vary?
I'd say there's probably some variation, but the stone books are usually a good guideline. Like I said, I'm extremely sensitive to them. Not everybody is. What works for me might not work for you as dramatically, but they do have certain, usually the color will indicate what chakra that they work with, and the healing properties of that chakra, whether spiritually or physically. Black is a grounding stone. Like I said, the hematite will help heal your pain. The tourmaline can help deflect negativity. The amethyst is the lighter end of the spectrum, the crown chakra, and can help you get in touch with the higher realms, your higher mind, more spiritual stone, whereas some of the reds and blacks are more physical, tied with the root chakra. So, but sometimes you just have to experiment. And I don't think everybody does this, but I can feel them. Like the selenite wand I bought last year, I decided I wanted one after I'd had a Reiki treatment, and the lady used one on me. There were two selenite wands, they looked absolutely identical. I picked up one and held it, I didn't feel anything from it. Laid it back down, I picked up the other one, and I literally began to tremble, and I was like, oh, this is wonderful. And Sam's like, what? And I was like, I feel like I'm getting an all-over body massage from the inside out. And so, some will affect and some won't. And I can touch them and feel the different energy. That's how I choose them, is by touch and the physical reaction that I get to them. I didn't know I had that gift until last year.
One other question.
Okay.
Is there any clashing of energies among the stones? I notice you've got several.
Could be, and I will admit I probably overload, but I have my favorites, and I've been called the stone lady, and so far they're working for me. But I'm not without them. I feel very naked without my rocks anymore, which a year or so ago, that would never have occurred to me. I'm no longer the same human being I was a year and a half ago in any way. I'm just kind of recognizable, but I'm not really the same person at all that I used to be. Anybody else? Okay. I have begun to do, like I said, some healing work with Reiki and with stones. And I just found out yesterday, in case anyone's interested, that the Health Food Center is going to let me set up with Reiki and stones in a couple of weeks. I think we've set a tentative date for the 18th if anybody is interested and wants to drop by. I haven't yet developed the flyer, but to use the chakra stones. And I have had a little bit of evidence that it is working for people. So it can help you if you let them. But thank you again.